Okay, recording started now. Okay, guys, so welcome to day 1 and 2. And we've talked about, we have talked about that you're the hardworking type. And then we talked about, hey, you must have a hardware that is minimum 16 GB RAM. We're going to be slow on that if you have 16 GB RAM, but if you have 32 GB RAM in your machine, now then we're good. So I teach in another college there. Everyone has always laptop or desktop with 32 GB RAM, right? Um, it's kind of fun, uh, going there and teaching there. Here, every time, every batch, it's 16 GB RAM. Majority of students have, so I have to on my 32 GB RAM laptop. I have to do the labs, pretending that I have 16 GB RAM, right? So my lab is slow, your lab is slow. When we have reached half of the course, then I'll be requesting, hey, okay, till the half you were following me, like you have whatever I click here, you click there, and whatever software I tell you to download, download that. And we're going to create the environment together, one step by step. We're going to go slow at the start, and we're going to try to understand everything. And after that, when we are too slow, and when I need to cover a lot of topics by the middle of the course, I'll be saying, okay, now sit back and enjoy the show and take screenshots of my screen where I say, but I need to show you all the complicated concepts, how to implement those complicated concepts and how to implement those in a actual environment. So, and we're going to creating the whole virtual machines from scratch. On top of that, we're going to start building more. So you get to know, oh, how to install this, and then all those complicated concepts implemented. We're going to implement one more on top of them while keeping all other working. So it's not that easy. But since you will have a video of all the steps taken and why I'm taking whichever step, so you should be able to understand it. Then it comes down to repeat, and ask questions if you don't understand anything, right? Okay, then key to success is hard work and dedication. Then we talked about the plan, and I'm saying here, I said here that it's always a combination of skills, not just one skill or two skills. It's always a combination of skills that gets you a good job. And I just say that how do you really know that what courses you're teaching or you're studying here gonna get you the job? So you go to Indeed.com or any other recruiter site and put your certification there and put your city name there and then check that how many jobs are for AWS in your area, how many jobs are there for VCP, VMware Certified Professional, how many jobs are for Azure and Linux. So it's always a combination of skills, not just one or two skills, right? So, and I say that you should be planning for 8 months up to 1.5 years to do all the courses, certifications, and labs, repeat them minimum 2 times, full labs, and then you should be ready for a better job. You work hard, more you get a job, possibility of getting a better job sooner than later, right? And after that, when the course ends, I'll be requesting the college to request VMware to send you the 70% discount voucher. One student actually did, by the middle of the course, Azure certification in previous batch, and I think at by the end of the course, 2 weeks, VCP certification as well. So pretty obsessive students and obsessive with doing all the certifications after understanding everything. So yeah, you're gonna get the voucher. So this much we have talked in detail, and I go ahead now and why VMware in today's market. Um, I create a lot of diagrams and then I open a wrong slide always in every batch, and then I have to read the whole thing. But anyway, it's always fun to do to redo because then again create from scratch. So here, there's a very advanced tool latest discovered by a Japanese, and that is MS Paint. Okay, so they dug it out from deep down some mountains. And what am I talking? Okay, let's go ahead and yeah. So why VMware? That's the question. And Why VMware? Or I should say where VMware. Okay. Anyway, so here, um, oh, serious? It's a newer version of MS Paint. I just installed Windows 11. So I don't want to. I just wanted to hide that. That I don't know how to make the font bigger. It's too embarrassing. Oh, okay. Here it is. But now the selection is gone. It's a basic tool. Seriously, why do I keep using this? Anyway, so here now VMware is so suppose you have a company here, and that company is so it's a Toronto branch, and no, okay. So Toronto branch, yeah. And in the Toronto branch, you have a lot of servers here. You have Microsoft environment, you have Linux environment there, and you have here, also Hyper-V for Microsoft, which is a virtualization technology, which is a rival of VMware. VMware is the top top technology in data center virtualization. What is data center? Data center is just a company's a space where you have lots of servers and switches and raised floor, and you got cables going here and there, fiber optic cables and UPS and uninterrupted power supply. Seriously. Okay. So that's a lot of technology there, but this is on-premises data center. Now, before even that, what used to happen, let me just grab some actual drawings here. And so HGB server, all right. Okay, so you must have seen big machines called servers here that really thousands of users connect to. There's an operating system installed on top of that, and then there is application installed on top of that. And then it used to be the case that one OS would be installed and one application would be installed there. Okay, let me just uh, so what used to happen, now I'm talking about the last decade, and then how did we come to VMware and where is it going from here, right? So it used to be that there are lots of servers. Let me just pin this to the taskbar. Second thing is I'll create another diagram for that. And what used to happen till now, and I'll put this here. So this is a physical server. Suppose the company bought it in $2,000, right? And then there are lots of other servers. Now, what used to happen was that there is you would install an operating system on top of that, which would be operating system like Windows or Linux. And then you would deploy on top of this an app. So if I go for, okay, so on top of the operating system, what would you deploy here? An app, right? So that would be, suppose an application like SQL Server or SQL servers for databases, right? Many of you would know that, and or file server or print server or any other application server, and then it would be just one physical server underneath, on top of it, one operating system, Linux or Windows, and then on top of that, one application. So now, if it's a big company, a global company with a huge amount of users across the planet, in different branches across the planet, so maybe 80,000 users, 100,000 users, maybe it's a bank. So now you would have in old days lots of servers, long rows of servers, and you would just simply um, have huge data centers. So if I go to the data centers here, so data centers. So that would be long rows of data centers. There are racks here. In each rack, there would be 10 to 20 servers here. You would see these racks here and all this either switches or routers or actual physical servers there. Well, so these would be all huge data centers with rows and rows and rows of all the servers. And that would be huge data centers. Obviously, there would be huge cost related to that, right? Now, then virtualization started coming in, and they said that, hey, are we using enough CPU and RAM for that? So, CPU, they realized that there is instead of the whole CPU. So, suppose you bought in this server in $3,000, this server in $3,500, maybe better hardware, this server $2,000. So then the company started seeing that, hey, the CPU or the processor is being used 50% on average. RAM is being used maybe 68% on average, suppose, and the hard disk, the storage is being also used 50 or 60% on average, right? And you were saying, and they were thinking that, hey, we are spending so much on hardware. Can we just use full capacity of this hardware? Because throughout the years, 5, 6 years, the applications haven't used full hardware, and we're just putting it. And one physical server takes some space, right? And on top of that, operating system, and then some application, then another physical server, operating system, and application. So why don't we just go with virtualization here, where full hardware capacity could be used as well? So then came that concept of hypervisor, and the hypervisor is a software that is very small in size. It for its own running, it takes very less RAM, CPU for its own running, very less CPU. It takes very less RAM for its own running. It takes very less hard disk for its own running. So what does it do? Well, hypervisor has one objective. What is that one objective? Hypervisor, it hosts, in simple terms, it hosts virtual machines. So, okay, what does that mean, and how does it really, save our cost, millions of dollars, that is? So when you deploy a simple application called Hypervisor, and its only purpose is to host virtual machines, so you can create virtual machines here, one virtual machine, second virtual machine on the same hardware. You create 3 or 4 virtual machines. Okay, so what? Then that same application, so there was an OS operating system here, and then either Windows or Linux, and then there is that SQL Server application. So this means that it's app. So here on the same hardware you have OS, and you have what? Print server. Okay. And oh, okay. When I was saying here print server, yes, you can deploy it on one physical server, but I meant here was that file server would have another physical server. Print server would be installed on an operating system, and just print server. Because if thousands of users are supposed to be connecting to a print server, suppose 10,000 users in one branch needs to use a print server, so it cannot be deployed on one physical server. You have to purchase another, suppose $2,000 hardware, install an operating system on top of that, and just make it a print server. Then install another $2,000 hardware operating system, and then just a file server. For large environments, you have to have separate. But then virtualization came, and then you have print server and on top of an operating system in one virtual machine. You have again OS here and a file server on this, and then there is OS here, and you have suppose web server or intranet here, right? And if this virtual machine is exactly performing this virtual machine is exactly performing like this one physical server. So if I go and remove this confusion, yeah. So there's just SQL Server here, and it was being handled by a physical server that was taking space in the data center. And now this task is actually being performed by a virtual machine on one hardware, but then the next virtual machine, which was actually installed on a separate physical server, this virtual machine is performing exactly the same way as this print server and this file server, exactly like this separately deployed on a hardware and then web server, same thing. So what you achieve from there is that now you do not need a separate hardware to run an application called SQL Server, because on one hardware with a lot more CPU and RAM, still it's cheaper than purchasing 5 or 6 separate hardware, because 5 or 6 separate virtual machines with the same applications work on the same hardware here, right? Thanks to virtualization by introducing Hypervisor. Instead of installing an operating system, now you install a hypervisor. With operating system, you can install one application, maybe 2 applications if they're compatible, or 3 applications. But here, now you can have then here, if you have good CPU, RAM, and hard disk, you can have here 8 virtual machines with different applications altogether. Just that you have to make sure that underlying CPU has to be good. Maybe it's a Xeon 32 core processor, right? And then you have RAM here, maybe 1 TB RAM or 2 TB RAM. That's huge and it's pretty expensive. And then you have storage. Storage is cheaper and a lot available. So that's local storage, could be even, a couple of terabytes, maybe 5 TB local storage. And then you have SAN, right? SAN, storage area network, that provides you over the network storage, and that's fast and a huge amount of storage, right? So SAN provides a lot of storage as well. Storage area network. Okay, so now if the virtual machines are doing all that each physical server was doing, then you do not need the physical servers. Okay, what that achieves? Well, when you need, suppose there were 500 physical servers, and after virtualization was introduced, now you need only 50 physical servers. So you would throw all the 450 physical servers out. So when I was in Scotiabank, they were throwing out some physical servers, and since they were throwing out, they didn't need that. So we employees said that, hey, can we just pick it up and take it home? And the boss got permission from HR and all other, and the boss says, okay, yeah, there are 5 servers there. Take what you want. And I was like, whoa. So I took the one physical server rack server at home. When I started it, it was like, and my kids were crying. So I said, okay. So then I donated it to a college, private college, and they were so happy. And then they had to throw it away. I don't know why. Okay. Anyway, so the thing is that uh, the companies throw out all the physical servers. But if you go and purchase nowadays this physical server in the market, that's the cheapest one. Like $300, $400, you will get a physical server like this. Um, Laptop with i7 quad core, 32 GB RAM, you might get, if you're lucky, $600. Otherwise, maybe $800 or $900. I'll give the contact as well. And or there is another quieter machine that is called workstation. So HP workstation, Dell workstation. If you get that used, they are quiet and they go up to 200 GB RAM workstations. So yes, have to look for used workstations that can run VCP 7 VMware software. Don't go for older workstations, right? Okay. Anyway, and they are cheaper as well, maybe $400-500 used one. But they're desktops, right? Or if you go for a mini PC that comes on the top of your palm or your hand, mini PC, and it's so small, it works like a desktop. You need a, I have a mini PC here, so I'll take a picture and put it there just to get you. So, Okay, so there's a comment in the chat. Greg says, any discount voucher for us for laptops? Hey, for certification, yes, and VMware is giving that, and VMware is a multi-billion-dollar company. So, but if you're asking for good hardware, laptop discount voucher. Okay, that's a good one. So, well, what I will give you a address of the guy, and first you go in the market and check out which one is which model is how much price, and then you can go to that. So that could be proven as a voucher. I don't know how much nowadays the laptops are, but it could be cheaper. But no, there are no vouchers. Okay. So yeah, as we are talking about that, if all those servers are thrown away, then you need data centers now, smaller data centers, right? So 500 physical servers were in a big space, in a hall. You were paying like thousands of dollars per month for that hall. Now it has shrunk down. The data centers, the on-premises data centers of the companies are shrinking, shrinking, shrinking because less amount of physical servers needed thanks to virtualization, less amount of physical servers, so less physical space is needed now to host your applications on virtual machines. So virtualization, because of that, companies saved millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? Less space. And that was the case when virtualization was on boom and everyone was doing VCP certifications, and then came the cloud. So, and it's going to be more cloudy in next 5 to 10, 6 years. It's going to be more cloudy with chances of a lot of more shrunk data centers on premises. But the thing is, because every company has to move to cloud because of the ground realities of saving a lot of money. So what happened when the cloud came? So where's my favorite cloud here? Yeah, this is not actually cloud. This is this, but it looks like cloud, right? Okay, so here, so suppose now the companies AWS and Azure, AWS started that actually in 2006, that they started creating their data centers, huge data centers across the planet Earth. So in every major business hub, like near Washington, D.C. and New York, near Toronto, wherever there's huge businesses and big company offices are there, or industrial areas, they created big data centers, right? So those big data centers across the globe, if I go to, so AWS data centers or Azure data centers is the same thing um, everywhere. So if you go to images, so their data centers, first of all, the data centers look like this, right? Look like these. So these are huge data centers, like near $1 billion spent there. There are leased lines, cables, fiber optic cables put there, and the data centers are across the planet Earth here, and they are connected. So this is just one company creating data centers in all the major business hubs across the planet. Then the other companies started, Azure started, Microsoft started creating their data centers like those that we've seen. And you can see that it's a lot of connectivity. There are submarine cables connected to each other. If I go for submarine cables connecting under the ocean, they put the cables there, and then you get to see that. So there are divers who are putting cables on the ocean floor, and these cables are then connecting the oceans together. And that's how the inside of the cable is. And if we go to a map here, so there's that, just AWS invested in their submarine cables across the ocean. Then Google Cloud is investing in their own submarine cables, and then all other Azure also. And with Tugboat, they actually put the submarine cable on the ocean floor here. So that's how they put it. And that's how continents are connected. And the company says, hey, your data will be traveling on our private AWS line, not on some rented lines that some third-party companies would have also put those cables on ocean floor, right? So AWS then and Azure also started saying that, hey, your data will be securely traveling on our private network, right? Instead of some rented one where shared traffic of many companies is going. So only Azure traffic is going because they spend that kind of money uh, connecting continents and their data centers. Okay, so that's what we were talking about. Now, cloud is pretty much the data centers are everywhere, and companies started thinking, hey, okay, we have big companies maybe thinking, okay, we have hundreds physical servers here and lots of virtual machines here. We have still have to maintain our data center, still have to hire VMware administrators, Microsoft administrators, Linux administrators separately. So now if this server goes down, suppose now virtualization, obviously hypervisor is running still on a physical server, right? So, and these servers run 24/7, 365, right? So this means all the time. So whenever you do maintenance or you restart every month for Microsoft updates, suppose, or VMware updates, which are not as monthly released, then you don't need to, the software is so good. But the hardware might go down here as well. And when the hardware goes down with hypervisor on top, and now this going down would be having more stakes involved. Why? Because there are so many users. So just for print server, there would be 10,000 users, 5,000, 2,000 users would be connected here, right? There would be another print server and another physical server virtual machine that would have next 2,000 to 5,000 users. 3,000 users here for file servers, maybe 1,000 users for this web server, maybe 10 or 20 applications connected to this SQL server. And then there are maybe 3,000 here, 5,000 here, 8,000 users here connected. So you can see that through one physical server, and it better have NIC teaming with maybe 4 network cards or 8 network adapters, right? Or 14 network adapters if it can have that. So through that network, a lot of traffic, huge traffic. So total, if you combine, it's like 15,000 up to 20,000 users are connecting here to one server. So one server goes down, then 20,000 users are disconnected. 20,000, okay, 10,000 maybe are disconnected. Obviously, they have high availability there. If you're thinking, hey, don't VMware have high availability? Obviously, they have. So, and obviously, I'll be introducing you to those concepts as well. Now that how high availability works, since we're talking about high availability, that it because this is unthinkable that hey, if you spend that kind of money, don't they have redundancy there? Obviously, they have redundancy there. So you would create uh, that technology is called fault tolerance, FT, fault tolerance. What that does is that your active virtual machines are here, all active, 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 and its passive standby backup virtual machines are on a physical server here. They're in VMware terms, it is called primary machines and secondary machines. So the primary machines are active machines where end users are connected. Suppose either the machine goes down or the physical server goes down, it simply fails over to its passive machine. All the connections also redirected to the passive machines. So yes, there is redundancy available with zero downtime, no downtime at all for the end users when it comes to FT, the one feature fault run. We're going to implement that and we're going to test that. We're going to do a crash test, right? So the thing is that yes, they have, but still they have to hire hardware experts and they have to have a hardware contract with the hardware companies here. But AWS and Azure, the CSPs, cloud services providers, right? Cloud service providers. So those CSPs said, hey, why are you maintaining your own data centers? We have spent a lot of money. And since we have a lot of money, so we made those data centers state of the art, secure, scalable, and fast data centers, right? So why don't you rent your our hardware? Why don't you rent our hardware? Why don't you just move your applications away from VMware and put it uh, why don't you move your applications away from VMware and put it on their hardware, rent it. So suppose you want to run SQL Server there. So SQL Server, you will be using their underlying hardware. So they will charge you some cents per hour, and it could be 0.00234 cents per hour. And when you're done using your application, you can delete it from there, no questions asked. Or if you are permanently going to rent our physical servers, so yearly we're going to give you very big discount, and that we are going to be maintaining the hardware. If it goes down, you don't have to worry about that. That's what the cloud service provider says. And you don't have to hire the hardware experts there. You don't have to have contracts with HP, Dell. You don't have to maintain that. You don't have to have your own data center. Just rent our data center, rent the hardware, state-of-the-art, secure, scalable hardware from us, and you don't need that data center. So that's what the cloud is offering, which means whatever small data centers the companies have, and majority of them have VMware as the data center virtualization technology. So those companies started shrinking even more, and they started moving their work in the cloud. Applications started getting migrated to the cloud, right? That's the situation nowadays. You see the company I'm working in that has everything in the cloud, but that's not a very big company. Actually, not everything, but the majority of it is in the cloud, but that's not a very big company. But there are medium to large size companies, again, 10,000 users up to 80,000 users, 100,000 users, 200,000 users. So those are not planning to move to cloud all out. Like they're not going to move their thousands of applications being used by thousands of users to the cloud totally. Banks, big government, big corporates, ministries, they're not going to put everything in the cloud. So they will always have, because they have budget, they will maintain their own data centers as well. So they're not going to put all the eggs in one basket. So suppose now you're connected to cloud with what? Internet. Okay, you get redundant internet connections. Suppose both internet connections don't work for some reason, or that, or maybe the cloud is divided into regions, right? So there's East US region, there's West US region, East Canada region, Central Canada region, European region, Asian region, right? So suppose there's a regional level disconnect there. So if you put all your applications there, now you're waiting for Azure or AWS to get that region back, so all your thousands of customers can connect to that. Maybe you have half your work in Azure cloud, half your work in AWS cloud. Still, it's dependent on different technologies as well as your internet connectivity. Sometimes internet goes down, sometimes submarine cable goes down. So big companies will always have, or major, maybe next 10 years, you will still see hybrid environment, which is on-premises data centers with VMware hypervisors deployed on hardware. You will always see that, and you will see cloud. So there would be an environment that you might see a lot is hybrid, right? So hybrid would be that some of their critical production workload is on premises in their own branches, and some of the critical workload is in the cloud, and they could just move the virtual machine to the cloud or move back to the on-premises branches. So you would see hybrid. Some companies, yes, they move totally to the cloud. Some companies have multiple cloud, but majority of the companies you will see on premises. Even now, I keep on seeing new job announcements. I keep on giving interviews, maybe for the fun of it, or maybe it's so good offer, I'll just take it if there is any. So the thing is that there are many companies, and I'm so amazed that they're totally on premises still, and they need infrastructure administrators there, and none of their applications are in cloud still, and they're big companies. So they're not a lot, but there are many here in GTA. But majority of the companies either are on hybrid, like some of the workload in their data centers and some in the cloud, and preferably smaller companies have gone fully cloud, right? So this is now when it comes to hybrid environment, you will always see VMware there. So that's why when I showed you in Indeed.com, VCP written there. So they required that you should be VMware certified professional. You must have that certification, and you should have those VMware skills because majority of the companies would have VMware in their data centers, and data centers are here to stay for at least 6 to 10 years, and all companies are not going to put every application there, everything in the cloud. That's not really uh, going to happen soon. So I'm just talking ground realities here. So that's why VMware is so important, because suppose you say, oh, hey, I am AWS expert. I have done a lot of labs on that. I'm certified as well. And you go to the interview and they start asking, okay, we have VMware environment as well. Do you know something about VMware? Yes, we have AWS and you are good at that. But suppose we want to move a virtual machine from VMware to AWS. Can you do that? So you have to know VMware in order to qualify for any job where suppose they asked, oh, we need just AWS expert. That's it. Suppose the job announcement says that. And when you go to the interview, they say, hey, we have VMware environment as well. And we assumed that you would know VMware. So, well, once the student came back, he did all the courses of VMware, no, cloud with me, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and Exchange Server, online, uh, Teams, so, and of course, that will be starting now, Endpoint Manager soon, somewhere else. So the thing is that he got all the cloud certifications, and he was asked all in 2 jobs. He was asked questions about VMware, so he came back and had to do VMware as well. So I was saying already that hey, you have to do VMware if you are going to be a cloud expert. So that's how they are related in the market nowadays. That it's a hybrid environment. They do have their own data center. If they have that, majority of them have VMware. VMware's rival is Hyper-V, Microsoft Hyper-V, right? So Microsoft is second best in cheaper data center virtualization. Um, and Microsoft second best in cloud. AWS is best in cloud service provider. VMware is best or top in terms of market share. VMware is top in data center virtualization. Microsoft is second best in both. Uh, but Azure Cloud is gaining momentum, although AWS is still way ahead in terms of maturity in cloud service providing. Whenever I teach AWS, it's amazing, and I see those features coming after 1 year, 2 years in Microsoft. What features were there by AWS? But AWS will go fast because Microsoft is really gaining momentum, and there are more jobs in GTA, especially in our area for Azure. So VMware plus Azure plus AWS, that would be the perfect combination, plus CCNA. And the plan that I gave. If you have those combination of certifications and you've done all the labs and perfect concepts, then yeah, you're kind of ready. You try to grab a job with desktop support first, and then start gradually going up the ladder to system administrator, right? So this is the whole the background of VMware, that it started from just physical servers, and then VMware really changed the whole concept of spending so much there. So just spend less and have more virtual machines in less space. But now that is changing, and still it's ongoing, where some of the work is going cloud, but some or majority of the work is still on premises. With bigger companies, you would see hybrid. Smaller companies, maybe they're all cloud. but having VMware skill would always be beneficial for you. So, okay, now that's about where the VMware is coming from. So I will just put it here. I'll be putting that. So here's the stack. Okay. I'll be putting that diagram in. Okay, that is a VMware we go dash to and 0 to all right. Okay, so now we failed to say document. Seriously, are you kidding me? Ah, okay. Anyway, that document is still here. All right. Okay, guys. So now we go ahead a little and talk about our lab as well as the topics of the course. If we go further ahead, always better to group together and do certifications, do all the labs together. And so all class sessions will be recorded. The recording has already started. So you will get that recording in the Blackboard. And later when this course ends and you will not have access to all this. So I have my own LMS as well, learning management system. I'll be putting all the videos there, or I have a YouTube channel there, Cloud Engineers Academy. So I'll be putting those videos for you to always check it out. Okay, and overview then. Now there's a lot to check here, and obviously this is not 6.5. This is okay. Wow, I'm the only uh, teacher in the. Oh, okay. Enable editing. Okay, I may be the only one who edits a slide live in the class. So yeah, the technology is pretty much the concepts pretty much are the same, but a lot changed from 6.5, 6.7 edition to 7.02 now, or 03 has update 3 has also arrived. So a lot has changed there as well. So I'll be sharing what changed and what are the main concepts still that the market always is after VM, where when it comes to data center virtualization. It's already there. So you would see Hyper-V that would have the same concepts, but obviously different naming there. But this is the top in data center virtualization VMware, so that's why learning virtualization through VMware is the best way to go ahead. And okay, so then there are objectives. So before the course objectives, um, there's a download folder. Okay, so I will be telling you the lab as well as the download folder. So you need to have certain type of software downloaded already before the next week when we start the lab. And also, how many of you have 32 GB RAM? Can you just put in the chat? And how many of you have 16 GB RAM in your laptops or desktops, whatever you have? So can you put in the chat 16 or 32 or okay, so Pradeep says 16, Zabir says 32. Wow. Oh, Shinvendu says 32, Kosar says 16, Sri Prakash 8. See the alarm? No 8 GB. Okay, so you just need to have one more 8 GB stick and you'll be good. Anoop says 32. Hey, there are more people here with 32 in this batch. I'm about to cry with happiness. Okay, anyway, so 8 GB Susan. Okay, so Susan and Grigwell 8, but it says it will look like 12, they say. Hey, who did you purchase this laptop from? Okay, 8, but it will look like 12. Not good enough. Uh, Samsung, like Samsung directly. You could just tell them if you just bought it that I need it to not only look like 16, I need it to be 16. So yeah, that's what you can say. Uh, so look like would not be a good idea, but 16 minimum. Otherwise, it's up to you. I mean, you can just try to test the lab with that. And if it's too slow, then ultimately we'll have to go and get it 16. So uh, before next week lab, why don't you try at least if you want to get it to be 16, not look like. Don't go for lookalikes, right? That's why it's good for a number to buy laptop. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's WhatsApp. So guys, I'll just put it in WhatsApp, that number. Other than that, so guys, those who have 32 GB, wow, like wow, that's it. I mean, I was not expecting so many to have 32 GB RAM, right? So that is hey, where's the number? Serious? Oh, there's the number. Okay, so I'll just copy number and put it in the chat, and then we can go ahead and talk about the topics. What are the topics there? What is the software you need, and how to install the software? Don't rush on installing the software. Do it with me because um, I'm gonna go for uh, the way I create the lab. You must create the lab that way. If you assume that, oh, I know he's gonna install lab this way, I know that already, I've installed this. So no, I do a lot of customizations. So if you have installed something already, you might not have configured it properly the way I want it. uh just like a great scholar said, I want it that way. Okay, no, it was not great scholar. So anyway, so the thing is that um have you have to follow me. When I click, then you click. Let me make it so simple. If I click, you click. If I no click, you no click, right? It can't be simpler than that, even with the wrong grammar, right? So the thing is that do not assume that I will, oh, I'm installing Windows, oh, I'm installing Hypervisor. So you have installed already, and then you will find that I have configured it and customized it so much that your hypervisor configuration is totally different than mine. So then your rest of the labs will be affected. So do it with me. Okay, I've put that, I was so wanted to say I have put in that number there in the WhatsApp. Put in. Okay, I have put that number in WhatsApp, right? Okay, so now uh, I see that those who are 8 GB, you guys are gonna have difficulty. So it's a so please just increase it to 16 GB, or if you just purchase a laptop, I think they're going to arrange for you. They could just increase your RAM right away. If you go today or tomorrow, so you'll be okay. And okay, if it's a used laptop, then yeah, go for used vendors and they can easily upgrade it to exactly 16. 32 is recommended, but 16, now majority is still 16. So guys, I will do the labs according to, I'll pretend that I have 16 GB RAM and I will give the RAM less, but I will also keep telling for those who have 32. So I will tell them, okay, you can put this, but I'm going to put 16. So those who have 16 can follow me as well, right? Okay. So anyway, that is one thing. So good to know that more of you have 32 GB RAM based machines. So, but 16 GB is a must. Let's go ahead a little, and I'll be giving you the software to download. You can download that, and then be ready next week for the lab, because then we start, then we don't stop. So other than that, what are the topics here? And what are some of the technologies really responsible for? So we're going to talk about that now. Now, course objectives here, describe the software-defined data center. So there's that software-defined data center. And that is, what is a data center? We have talked about that. And data center would be then, okay. Hey, I could just put that screenshot here in the in this slide, and I'll update the slide with this, right? All right. So that is the slider. Okay. So what I was talking about was the technology, and yeah. So software-defined data center is that if you have a physical server in a data center, so you can have a software-defined virtual server. So physical network card, network adapter, a virtual network adapter, physical switch, Cisco switch, right? Um, and 8-port switch or 28-port switch or 48-port switch. So you have virtual switch there. And we're going to be talking, spending time on networking here as well. And but software-defined data center is just that you have everything defined by software, so everything is virtual. So virtual server, virtual storage, virtual network card, virtual hard drive, virtual CPU, virtual memory, virtual. Even it's so virtual that even your refreshment was virtual, right? That was in WhatsApp, the virtual one, right? Okay, anyway, it made me hungry so much. Anyway, so deploy and ESXi host and create virtual machines. So we're going to be doing that. We're going to be deploying an ESXi host. Oh. So we have talked about ESXi, and yeah, it's a hypervisor. And so there's one more thing I needed to say about the hypervisor. The one job of hypervisor is to um, to host virtual machines, right? And to use the hardware to its full extent. So that's the purpose of hypervisor. But then there are two types of hypervisors, and those two type of hypervisors are, so there is hypervisor 1, and then there is hypervisor 2. Oh, there are types of hypervisors as well. Yeah. So hypervisor 1 is, so the example of that would be if you have two operating systems, you know what? Okay, these are not, this is not the place to put it. It should be up there. And we have already talked about Vmware, right? It's virtualization and it saves money. Okay, so suppose there's one server and that has a Windows operating system, right? Operating system. And then on top of that Windows operating system, you have you install hypervisor. Yeah, you can install on top of Windows as well, and that's exactly what we're going to do in our lab because it's a training environment. So, and okay, so this is hypervisor 2, that type, and then you can create virtual machines on top of that. So virtual machine, virtual machine, virtual machine, virtual machine. While the hypervisor 1 is that you install the ESXi VMware ESXi hypervisor cell. So the full name is VMware ESXi hypervisor E657 hypervisor, right? So the name of the hypervisor in VMware is ESXi. Okay, since I'm talking about that, so you know, VMware has a hypervisor called ESXi, and Microsoft has hypervisor called Hyper-V, and um, Citrix has hypervisor called Zen server, and so on. Red Hat has hypervisor called KVM. So every company or these companies which were interested in creating that product, they have released their own hypervisor and hypervisor software, right? So their hypervisor are named like this. So this is then ESXi is from VMware. Hyper-V is also a hypervisor. It does exactly the same thing what hypervisor are supposed to do, host virtual machines. And Citrix has Zen Server as hypervisor, and Red Hat has this KVM as a hypervisor, right? So they all released it. So we're gonna, since it's a VMware course, so we're gonna be working on ESXi hypervisor. Hypervisor does what? So hypervisor is installed in hypervisor 1. The hypervisor software is directly installed on top of a bare metal machine. In hypervisor 2, the first an operating system is installed on the machine. Then on top of that, you can install hypervisor. And then on top of that virtual machine here, if we go to this one, here, hypervisor, a small software gets installed directly on a bare metal hardware without an operating system already installed. So just the hypervisor directly gets installed, hypervisor, and then you can directly install virtual machines. So what's the difference between the two? The difference is that for its own use, the hypervisor 1 type of deployment, the hypervisor 1 hypervisor, for its own use, uses less CPU, RAM, storage, networking. For its own running, it uses less of all this, right? CPU, RAM. So where does all that go? Virtual machines then use the CPU, RAM, storage. Let me just put that here as well. So here, when you install a hypervisor on top of an operating system, so operating system for its own running, okay, for its own running, it uses more, comparatively more than, much more than a hypervisor, more CPU, RAM, and storage and networking. Operating system, first of all, for its own running, uses that more than whatever is left of the CPU, RAM, storage, networking is given to the virtual machine. So obviously, the hypervisor 1 is the solution. Hypervisor is used in companies, used in companies, uh, companies. However, is used in companies, and well, because it gives um, a much better performance, right? Because hypervisor 1 uses less of the hardware for its own running, and hence more CPU, RAM, and storage and networking is available for the virtual machine. So virtual machines will perform much better and faster. So when it comes to this, hypervisor 2, it is used for training slash test environments. It does not offer performance, which is the main thing in a production environment, in companies, in live environments. So Hypervisor 2 is installed on top of an operating system. So in your laptops, you will be installing VMware workstation. So the name of the hypervisor 2, the VMware Hypervisor 1, the name of the VMware Hypervisor 1 is ESXi, which is used in professional environments. And the name of the hypervisor to by VMware is VMware Workstation. This is Hypervisor 2. It gets installed on top of an operating system. It is used for training environments, and we're going to be training on that software. And the latest version of that is VMware Workstation Pro 16. So you're going to be installing on your laptop Windows 10 or 11, this VMware Workstation Pro 16, right? And this will be the training environment. Inside this VMware Workstation Pro 16, Hypervisor 2, we will be installing Windows machine. We will be installing ESXi 1, ESXi 2, ESXi 3, the professional hypervisors we will be installing in our training environment software called VMware Workstation. So I'll be doing that step by step. You're going to be following me. So don't worry about anything, and I'll be explaining what I'm doing and why I'm doing that. I'll be explaining all that as well. Okay, so but you should know the difference between Hypervisor 1 and Hypervisor 2. And Hypervisor 2 is just for training environment. Hypervisor 1 is for the professional environments, the companies. Okay, so I will put to this to the slide as well. So you could see the updated slide. Okay, and all right, so we were talking about Hypervisor 1 and Hypervisor 2, and then we also now know that VMware offers two types of hypervisors, Hypervisor 1 and Hypervisor 2. Hypervisor 1 from VMware, its name is ESXi. Hypervisor 2 from VMware, its name is VMware Workstation Pro 16 is the nearest version, or VMware Workstation. That's the name of the Hypervisor 2 from VMware, right? So we're gonna install that before next class, and it's all next finish. When you download, so I'll give you the download link, or I'll tell you where it is. And yeah, so you should now know that what is hypervisor, what the types of hypervisor, and so if I go ahead, so we were talking about this. So describe the software-defined data center. Then we were talking about deploying ESXi host. So this is a Hypervisor 1 used in professional environment. So you will know then how to install that. So ESXi host we will be installing, and we will be creating virtual machines on top of that. So once we create the whole environment properly, step by step, discussing each step, why we're doing this, why not that, and then we're going to install the hypervisor, right? And then there is describe vCenter server architecture. So we're going to be talking about, describe what? vCenter server architecture. Okay, what is vCenter? So if we go back to our diagram here, so we try to know that what is this? So what's that is, I need one. Hey, where's my OneNote here? Seriously. Oh man, I forget the whole thing. Save notes and settings, so blah, 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 blah. Ah, okay, later. Or not. Okay, I'll just go for one page here. You know, OneNote is the best note-taking thing. The and VM nowhere. VMware. Okay, so here I'll put VMware diagrams, and we will. I need that server diagram. And I should be using Visual for that. It's much better. Here's Visual. Maybe some of you know what is this. So you want me to buy it? Okay, bye. Yeah, I have a license, but I'll just try it after this class because I just set up this. Okay, so anyway, I'll just quickly go back to what I was doing here. So vCenter, yeah, what is vCenter? And for that, I needed that diagram. So I'll go for another one now in this. So vCenter is that central software which um, handles the whole VMware environment, which handles the storage, the networking, the virtual machines, the CPU, which is called compute, CPU and RAM. So suppose you have a big company here and you have lots of um, ESXi hosts. So the name is ESXi, but we can call it in production environment, we say, hey, did you connect to that host? Which host? Host number 23. Oh, so we mean that it's the ESXi hypervisor that we're talking about. So either ESXi host, we can say, we should get the habit of seeing that, saying that ESXi host or just host or E6i hypervisor. Uh, so it could be named anything. Now, suppose you have a lot of those, and then, ouch. I need one more here. Then you deploy, uh, then you deploy a vCenter. But why would you deploy a vCenter? So that's what I'm explaining here. vCenter server. So vCenter server is the central software that handles the whole VMware environment. And this course revolves around all the advanced features of VMware vCenter. So this vCenter software is what this course is all about. That what are the advanced disaster recovery, high availability features there in vCenter. We? No, we means yes, right? Okay, so vCenter. Okay, so here, now, uh, when you have, suppose there's a company, small companies actually, they cannot afford even the vCenter license, it's expensive. But suppose you have a small company and they have only this four hypervisors, they kind of don't need vCenter. But when you have like 100 vCenters there, so suppose if you don't have a vCenter, 100 hypervisor, I mean. So suppose you don't have a vCenter and you have just four of them. So you can remotely connect to each hypervisor and suppose create virtual machines here, and then remotely connect and maintain them, and then put a remote software or monitoring and put it there as well. But you have to manually connect on all these hypervisors to check the virtual machines, whatever number of virtual machines are there. You will have to connect one by one to all hypervisors and maintain them there. But if you have not four physical servers with ESXi hypervisor installed, instead, you have actually 400 hosts here, right? So I'm calling it hosts or, but it means ESXi. Yeah, you were saying? Was there any question? Oh, okay. I thought somebody said something. All right. So, oh, guys, you can always jump in on the mic and ask any question anytime, or you can ask the question in the chat. So I'm always looking at the chat. And yeah, so, okay. Anyway, so suppose you have 400 ESXi hosts instead of four. Now, connecting to them one by one and maintaining everything is not going to be very productive, right? So it's not going to be productive. And we will have to 758. Oh wow, I just got the message. Okay. Okay, guys. Yeah. So 486 hosts, right? Now you can't just remotely connect to each one of them and then do and you're expected to do all the tasks perfectly and in timely manner. So you need to have some central big application that simply connects to all the hypervisors. Just like if you have Windows experience and you know that when you have installed, suppose 200 Windows 10, you have to all join them all to the Windows Server Active Directory, right? You have to join them to the domain, right? So you have to join these physical servers, hypervisors, to the central management software called vCenter. VMware, actually the full name is vSphere, VMware, vSphere, vCenter. We. Okay. Hey, we is yes in French or V is yes in Spanish? Like C, senor. Oh, C is in French, right? V is, I think, in Spanish. I don't know. Okay, anyway. So yeah. So here, vCenter is the central software from which you can remotely not only connect to the physical server or the hypervisor. So what happens is you install the vCenter first. Then you join these hosts to the vCenter, introduce these hosts to the vCenter, right? And then this vCenter manages all the hosts, manages all the hosts, um, all VMs or virtual machines inside the host. Pretty much everything is inside the host, right? So host is the main thing to join to the central management application, expensively licensed central management application called vCenter. And once you connect the host to the vCenter, so the virtual machines live on the host, everything pretty much is on the host, right? So all VMs, their networking, their storage, security, and high availability, disaster recovery, scalability, and all the abilities, right? So their networking, storage, security, high availability, disaster recovery, scalability, um, and compute. Well, vCenter manages all that, right? So pretty much everything is managed by the vCenter, right? So this course is all about the features, advanced features of disaster recovery, high availability of vCenter, and that's the VCP 7 version or edition of that. So with a lot of advanced features as well. Okay, so what is vCenter? Now we know that it's the central management application with an expensive license. So medium to large size companies can afford that, and they connect to hypervisors, and then whatever's on the hypervisor they manage. And pretty much hypervisors are uh, the ones that have virtual machines, and that environment you have to handle. Virtual machines have the most critical thing called application and data, right? So that's what is hosted by the hypervisor, and that's what is being managed remotely by the vCenter, right? ONK. So so that's the vCenter. Okay, guys. So let's take a break. How about that? Because at the mid of the class, we take a break. So we will take a break here, and then we will come back at 8:20. So it's a 20-minute break, and we will so uh, break, and class starts 8. Well, it's 8:24 now. Okay, 8:24. But I'll be explaining more about the software and give you the link to download after that. and we can finish early today. But we'll start the lab next week, and your machines need to be ready by that, and I'll give you all the explanation of that. But anyway, break time, so I'll mute the mic and pause the video, and let's take our break. Zoom. Okay, so we were talking about some topics here, and we were talking about the vCenter. So we're going to be installing vCenter now that you know what is it. And other than that, Windows based and appliance based. Now, Windows based vCenter is already uh, gone. So it's in newer versions, it's uh, deprecated. Well, what do you say? Uh, removed. So now only appliance-based switches, Linux-based vCenter is there available. I'm going to be installing that. And so we're going to be checking out when we are deploying the vCenter. First, we're going to create our basic environment, and then we're going to install the DNS, the DHCP, and Active Directory. Although it doesn't give authentication to the vCenter, vCenter has its own authentication mechanism. But still, we're going to install Active Directory to show one lab how to connect Active Directory to the vCenter. I'm going to explain that all later, obviously, when we're doing the lab. So deploy a vCenter server instance. So how do we deploy the vCenter server instance, or how do we deploy the Linux-based vCenter? We're going to talk about that. Obviously, I'll create some diagrams and then show you that how to install. Then I'm going to actually do that too. It's a big application, so it takes a lot of time. And in previous batch, hardwares some of the student hardware actually did not. Two or three students' laptop had some issue with vCenter, and the vCenter was not able to be deployed. All others were able to deploy that. Now, use vCenter server to manage ESXi host. Obviously, that's the purpose of vCenter, that it's centrally, first it connects to the ESXi hosts, and then it manages all the resources and of the hosts, and as well as offer advanced features. So configure and manage vSphere infrastructure with VMware vSphere client and VMware vSphere web client. So now it's just web client. What's the logic of the client of vCenter? The logic is that you will be, or we will be connecting to the vCenter. We will be connecting first in order to control the whole environment with the help of vCenter. We have to connect to the vCenter itself. And in order to do that, well, we just need to know the URL of the vCenter in our local environment. So if we connect through the browser to the vCenter, then that is called web client. So with the help of web client, which is just a URL put in Google Chrome or any other browser, if the URL is correct, then pretty much the URL looks like this: https://server name slash the small UI. So if you have the correct URL, server FQDN, actually FQDN, fully qualified domain name /UI. If we have installed it correctly, the vCenter, first of all, after a long installation, and then it has the correct URL, then through this, from any browser, from any Windows machine or Linux machine, you open a browser and put the correct URL, and you will be able to connect to the vCenter. That is called web client. So if we go ahead, so we're going to do that and configure virtual networks with Vsphere standard switches. So definitely that's one of the most important things. The networking component, the virtual standard switch. So when the ESXi hosts are deployed. So those hosts, they have obviously the ESXi hypervisor. When the hypervisor is deployed, a virtual network switch gets deployed with it. So we're going to be then talking about the virtual network switch here, and the virtual network switch. So suppose that's the virtual network switch here, and the virtual network switch does what it just offers the network. So suppose there's a virtual network switch here, and then there is a network adapter here. Suppose that's the network adapter or network card. So it's the FINIC or physical network interface card, FINIC. I hope everyone knows what's a network interface card. So when you're connecting, so on your laptop or desktop, you have a network interface card, and through that you connect to the Wi-Fi or through a cable. So that would be the physical network interface card on the machine. And this is the V switch of the virtual machine of the A6i host. So what does it do? Obviously, it provides networking too. So first of all, it is connected. So virtual switch is directly connected to physical network interface card, and in the hypervisor, when hypervisor gets deployed, the virtual switch gets deployed automatically as well. One virtual standard switch gets deployed, and that virtual switch connects to the physical network adapter of the hypervisor. But what is it used for? Obviously, when you deploy a virtual machine, well, these are the virtual machines. So the virtual machine has to be connected to some kind of network. So virtual machines get connected to the virtual standard switch that is already there. So when you deploy a hypervisor for the first time, a virtual standard switch gets created automatically. And when you deploy virtual machines on top of a hypervisor, so they automatically gets connected to the virtual switch. So that's how the virtual switch. But we're going to spend a lot of time in um, exploring all the features of virtual standard switch and what are port groups and what is VM kernel adapter or VM kernel port. So we're going to talk about all that. Then use vCenter to manage various types of host storage, VMware, Vsphere, VMFS, NFS, virtual SAN, and virtual volume. So these are the storage types that what you do when you deploy a hypervisor. So there are storages here. These are the disks here, right? These are the disks here. Disks. So these disks are formatted with the file system called VMFS. So those who have worked on Windows know that when you deploy a Windows server or Windows 10, the underlying physical disk is formatted with a file system called NTFS. So when hypervisor is deployed directly on a bare metal physical server or an empty physical server where nothing else is installed, so it formats the disks with the file system called VMFS, which is VMware file system. VMFS, VMware file system. So that's what it's saying here, that what kind of storage you can features and technology you can or VMware provides. So there's NFS, network file system for Linux, virtual SAN, which is the cheaper version of the actual SAN, storage area network, and SAN is just a solution to provide storage over the network, and it's pretty expensive, but its cheaper version is virtual SAN. When we come to the SAN topic, we're going to talk about that. And virtual volumes, which are just way to handle the SAN deployment or regularly use that SAN through with the help of virtual volumes. Manage virtual. So when I keep talking about SAN here, so why don't I just make a diagram of that? Oops. So here, suppose it's HP SAN. So storage area network or SAN, it provides lots of disks over the network or storage over the network. So that could be full rack, which is just providing a lot of rows and rows of disks here, right? So those disks over the network connect to the hypervisor. Seriously, where's the better picture of that? Really? Okay, HP SAN power device, maybe we'll give better picture. All right. So it's normally rows and rows of disks. Huh. It used to send a lot of search results that I wanted. HP SAN solution, but that might get to the diagrams. Oh, there you go. So you get a tower that has rows and rows of disks, software disks. Maybe they're SSDs, and they are 1 terabyte SSDs. Each one of them is one terabyte or two terabyte or maybe 500 GB SSD disks. But these are the SAN devices, and these SAN devices do what? So when there are a lot of in a virtual environment, obviously we cannot survive without a SAN. And what happens with the SAN device? SAN solution, first of all, it's very expensive, right? And it could be $80,000, $50,000, 100,000, 200, 500,000 even, or even more. So SAN is storage area network, and what it does is what it does is that you connect one disk, and over the network it is called LUN or logical unit number, or a disk that is shared over the network to all the hypervisors. Color that. So this one disk is attached to all the hypervisors, and then the second disk is attached to all the hypervisors, and the third disk and the fourth disk, they're all attached to every hypervisor, right? So just giving an example of two here. So what happens is, so each disk, all these disks as well, just like these, so they're attached to the hypervisor. What happens is that when you create a virtual machine, that virtual machine uh, has its files that lets it work, right? So those files are created on that mapped disk or LAN, and suppose there's a virtual machine, and that virtual machine is a virtual disk. In this virtual disk, you have a lot of data, right? That virtual machine is or its virtual disk and its files are not created on the local physical disk of this hypervisor. Those virtual machines are they create or they're supposed to be professionally created on top of a LUN logical root number or virtual disk that is shared over the network. So it's created on top of a virtual disk that is actually that is mapped over the network. So when you're saving in this virtual disk that is coming and shared over the network, you're actually saving all this when you're creating a virtual machine, a virtual disk and all the virtual machine file here, so you are actually saving it here, right? So this means that if this physical server goes down, what happens? So the virtual machine's virtual disk, which has all the critical data, was never there on this physical server. It was actually over the network on this disk. And this very disk is not only connected to just this physical server, this same disk is also connected to this physical server and this physical server and this. So this virtual machine that was running on the RAM of this physical server, when this physical server crashes for some reason, then this virtual machine can be started on this physical server as well, because it its files were, its virtual disk was on a shared disk that was mapped over the network from the SAN to this physical server, and the same disk is mapped to this physical server, same disk is mapped to this, and same disk is mapped to this. So the files are actually on the disk that is also attached to or mapped to the other physical servers. So when one physical server goes down, this virtual machine can be restarted on this server or this server or this server as well. So that's why SAN is very, very important. We're going to deploy our own version of virtual SAN in the lab, but overall, obviously, without a SAN or a virtual SAN, you don't have a virtual environment. You have to have storage area network over the, you know, storage over the network, which is highly available.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
So in the sense, you're saying each type of V visual machine redundantly.
You're cutting a little.
So,
Oops, sorry, I didn't get your question. You were cutting. Either you write the question there or you can try to say it again.
hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the sense you're saying that V virtual machine has storage on network, right?
Yeah.
So it can be one that fails shown can be assumed from another virtual machine.
Oh, sorry. Anyone else got it? Because you're cutting a lot. Maybe the internet connection. So, but you can write it in the chat as well, in WebEx. But maybe what you're saying is, I'll try to reconstruct the question, that this virtual machine is on a remote storage. This virtual machine is not created on the local storage. It is on the remote storage. So it's actually all the files are created here, and this is fiber optic cable, so it's pretty fast. And when the server goes down, yes, it's still machine does restart. It does shut down because of the RAM is not available on top of which it is working, but it can be restarted on any of the server. I hope that is the answer, but because I didn't get the question because your voice is cutting, sorry. So either you can type it in the WebEx. Maybe that's the answer, or otherwise you can write it in the WebEx. So, okay. So if you put it in the WebEx, then I'll just look at the chat and I'll answer. Otherwise, I'll go ahead. So what we were talking about here, manage virtual machines, templates, and clones then. So we're going to talk about then how to create templates of virtual machine. A template is a perfect virtual machine that you can create a copy of, right? You can create a copy of. So you can create a copy of a template virtual machine, right? Suppose you want to deploy hundreds of virtual machines, so you can use one template and create clones of that template to create a virtual machine. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then there's Vapp, and yeah, I was having some food in the break. Okay, so they create a Vapp, and that Vapp is it's just if you want to group together virtual machines to start, restart, or stop virtual machines together. Suppose there are 5 virtual machines and you're maintaining them, you put the Windows updates there and you want to restart them all. So if you want to restart them together, you have to first add those virtual machines to Vapp, and then Vapp offers those controls that you can click and they will all restart together or start together or shut down together, right? So obviously I'll be showing you that how to do it in the lab. And then we're going to be talking about describe and use the content library. So content library is like a file server where you can store, this file server is for the VMware environment, and it's called content library, where you can store Vapp or ISO images like Windows images, Windows ISO image to install Windows, or Linux ISO images, or templates or scripts. So it's kind of a file server for VMware environment called Content Library. Migrate virtual machines with VMware, vSphere, vMotion. So vMotion is one of those very sought after, or that was a technology with which VMware really had a big boost. So that's the vMotion, and what happens in vMotion is that that's where the visual screen I wanted to use. And I'll quickly go for some server pictures here. So suppose you have a hypervisor here and hypervisor here and hypervisor here. And you have ESXi hypervisor installed here. And then you have virtual machine. Hey, they have shape for virtual machine. Virtual machine. I do not think so. So I'll just grab a square here and imagine this is a virtual machine. Oh, didn't go vertical. There's okay. So there's that virtual machine here. Serious. It just grows up or down. Let me just grab a vertical one quickly here. Rounded rectangular cube. Okay. Computer. Okay. VM maybe. Oh yeah, it's not looking on the internet. So I'll just go for some rectangular here, trapezoid, rectangle. Really? So that's a virtual machine here. Oh yeah, that's it. So you have maybe two virtual machines here, or three virtual machines here, and so that's VM. All right, so I think I need this one. So that's VMs here and VMs here. Now, what happens is in vMotion, you have here um, suppose there's a virtual machine and there are so many users connecting here, right? So those users which are connecting here, they will be um, suppose there are 5,000 users who are connecting to this virtual machine, and then they start complaining, hey, this virtual machine is the performance is unacceptable, right? So which means that so then you check, suppose there are users are opening a file, it's opening very late, they're closing a file, it's very late, they're saving a file, it's taking too much time. So they are all complaining this virtual machine when they're connecting. Suppose there's a file server, so they are okay. There's a chat in the chat. Xavier says you can move storage or headline head file on another ESXi without interruption. Yes, exactly. So that's vMotion. Okay, there you go. So Xavier has explained. So let's go for the next topic. Just kidding. Okay, yeah, but yeah, exactly as you said. So vMotion is that and that is vMotion. That is also supposed to be. All right. So what we need to make sure here. Okay, so there's another chat here. Chinwendu says that you mean each Hyper-V VM has a redundant storage linked to the SAN, and any failed Hyper-V can be accessed from another Hyper-V on the network. If I go back to the diagram, so that's the previous question, guys. What he was trying to say, he has written that, which is good. So No, that's not redundant. Yeah, so these lines have actually put more confusion here. So no, they're not redundant. So this line is coming from the upper disk here, right? Then this line is coming from a lower disk. So this is disk number one. So I could say disk one here. And this line is actually coming from disk 2 or 1, 2. Disk 2. So this is a second disk connected to this one. Second disk is connected to this one. There's a disk 1 connected to this one. Same disk 1 is connected to this one. So there's no redundant line. But yes, technically, yes, there can be a redundant line also created. If one line goes down, then the other line can still be connected. So yes, so first of all, I did not create this as a redundant line coming from this disk to this hypervisor, but technically, yes, we can have actually two lines connecting to the whole SAN, not each disk.
ਉਹ ਲਾਉਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਹੈਰੋਇਡ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਰੋਇਡ ਰਿਲੇਟਡ ਬੰਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀ ਬਲਬਲੇ ਬਣਾ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਵਾਧੂ ਦੇ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਜੋੜ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਆ
ਗੁਰਗਵਾਲ ਜੀ
ਤੇਰੇ ਲੱਗਣ ਲੱਗਣਾ
ਗੁਰਗਵਾਲ ਜੀ ਮਿਊਟ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ
ਤੇਰੇ ਲੱਗਣ ਆਪਣਾ
ਮਿਊਟ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ ਭਾਈਜਾਨ ਮਿਊਟ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ hey, was it Gurpal, right? Okay, so yeah, we were hearing your phone call and you were transferring $1 million to someone. So I will give you the bank account on WhatsApp separately. So you can just transfer $500,000 to me as well. Thank you. Okay, just kidding. So let's try to go ahead. Yes, so Chinwendu, yeah, technically, if you want to create two redundant lines, we create it from a storage to the whole SAN, but not the each disk. It's not possible to create that on each disk, but it is possible to create all the whole SAN that you're connecting to. And it could be a possibility to the disk. Maybe they've created that, but till now I know that it's but what the lines I've created, these are separate disks. So the lower disks line is this, and the upper disk line is this, right? So, but is it possible to create two? Yes, but from hypervisor to the whole SAN solution, but not to the each disk. Okay, so that's how it is. And yes, if there are two lines and if one line goes down, yes, from the other line, we stay connected to the SAN as well. That is also possible. That's why SAN is a very expensive solution, right? Okay, so I got it. And then there was a question from Xavier. Actually, that was the statement that how vMotion works. So I'll just explain that quickly. So vMotion is that suppose you see that virtual machine is performing low and you realize by investigating there, connecting to the hypervisor that there is very less CPU available or very less RAM available here, right? But then you also investigate that this hypervisor has more CPU than this hypervisor, right? So you decide that, oh, if I migrate this virtual machine, vMotion, this virtual machine from this hypervisor to this hypervisor, then it will get more, this virtual machine will get more speed because this hypervisor has more processor available, suppose, and more RAM available, while this one has very less SAM and processor available, not professor. So suppose there are more virtual machines here and they are also using CPU and RAM, and that's why this virtual machine had very less CPU and RAM. So when you vMotion the virtual machine from one hypervisor to another, and this hypervisor has more CPU and RAM to offer, then yes, this is called vMotion. And the best part is that the users are connected and you can migrate a virtual machine over the LAN network, local area network, from one hypervisor to another while users are connected. So during the migration, first of all, it's very fast migration within seconds. It happens. The second thing is the user, when if they're working and the migration is going on, they will click, 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 and the screen will be frozen for a few seconds. And then all of a sudden, when the machine actually reaches here with a better hypervisor, with more CPU and RAM available, so when they start clicking again, so their files will be working faster, opening faster, saving faster, right? So the vMotion is just migration of a live, powered on virtual machine with users connected on the LAN from one hypervisor to another. When you migrate that, that's called vMotion. So that's pretty cool, right? Without any downtime, you have migrated. So we're going to configure the whole thing. We're going to test the whole thing, right? So that's going to be so much fun. All right, let us go ahead. Okay, where do I save this? It's the PC. Where? Okay, so it's we could do. All right. Okay, so that's vMotion. We get that. Migrate virtual machines from Vsphere vMotion. Yeah, we're gonna do that. And then there is storage vMotion. So storage vMotion is that you can move from one storage disk to another one. So that is if you want to move a virtual machine that is sitting on this remote disk or LAN to another remote disk or LAN. So yeah, I should create that other one as well. Suppose there is another one. So you're gonna move from one remote disk to another remote disk, that is called storage vMotion. And what? Okay. So then we are talking about monitor resource usage with resource usage and manage resource pools. So resource pools are just going to let you reserve CPU and RAM for the VIP virtual machines. So those virtual machines which are critical, you through with the help of resource pool, you can reserve CPU and RAM for those virtual machines. So suppose one virtual machine is so critical, you can give always suppose 32 GB RAM to that virtual machine. So that can only be done with the help of resource pool. We're going to do a lab on that, and then you're going to see that. Use VMware vRealize. So vRealize is just a monitoring and automation expensive application, and that is a big application. We're going to talk theory about that, but labs for all other things. But it's for monitoring and it's a one-stop solution by VMware for monitoring and automation. Then there is vSphere high availability and fault tolerance. So these are very, very important and critical features there. What is high availability and fault tolerance? So fault tolerance, as I may have already mentioned, that this is suppose active machine. And so this is suppose the active machine, and this is the passive or standby machine, right? Or standby VM. So what happened here is that, so I'll just make it active, and this is passive, right? So what happens is that when you have an active passive machine, this means that whatever is going on between these two, or whatever is happening on the active machine gets copied at the same time with synchronous replication from one machine to another. And that is then active and passive virtual machines. Because whatever is happening in active gets copied in passive the same time. So if the active goes down for some reason, then yeah, so I need to just be more perfect in the lines here. Anyway, so the thing is that if it goes down, then you will be so this machine, if goes down, all services and connections from this automatically fail over to the passive, and the passive becomes the new active machine without any end user downtime, right? Without any end user downtime. So that's what active and passive machines are, fault tolerances. When it comes to, okay, so we were talking about FT, or fault tolerance, and fault tolerance is you make an active passive machine, right? So then there is also high availability, HA, which is high availability, which is not a perfect, um, solution without downtime. So it has a downtime. What happens is that suppose there is one virtual machine here, and and the high availability has been configured. Normally, what happens is you deploy a cluster feature, and then in the cluster you get fault tolerance, high availability, vSAN, DRS, all the advanced features. So once you deploy a cluster and you are configured high availability, excuse me. So what happens is that if this physical server crashes, right? So if it crashes, and I will make this. If it crashes, then the virtual machine will be restarted again, not failed over, not vmotioned. It will be restarted, which means it will be effectively shut down and restarted on any other hypervisor, surviving hypervisor. If it crashes, all the virtual machines on top of this one will be restarted on the other surviving hypervisors, but there will be a downtime. So with fault tolerance, there is no downtime, time. And with high availability, although the name says high availability, but there is downtime, right? So, but we're going to implement that, and then I'm going to show you how both of these works together. But the high availabilities, it restarts the machine. If the physical server crashes, fault tolerances, it fails over right away. If the server crashes here, it fails over to the passive machine running on a working server, physical server, right? So we're gonna then also talk about Vsphere replication, data protection. So it's basically about backup. We're gonna actually use a third-party software which is more famous, and you will find it in many companies, and that is called Back with the software company name is called Veeam. Many of you must have heard about it. So we're gonna do a full backup lab on to show that how virtual machines are backed up and restored with the help of a third-party software called Veeam. And that's just backup and restore. But what is replication? Replication is a bit larger scale. You can say large scale, on much more bigger distance. What you do FT, but you do it on bigger distance. Now, how that works is that suppose you have, I'll grab two pictures of office shade. Oh, where did first? Okay, office buildings. Branches. Okay, that's more like it. So I'm gonna go for, yeah, this type out is better. Okay, so what happens is that if you have a head office here, and you have 3 branches here, you have virtual machine here, and you want actually that virtual machine to be replicated here. So suppose you have a virtual machine here, and format, bring it to front. Okay, I'll bring that. Oh, that was up there. Bring to front, bring send to back. Okay, so this virtual machine is here, and you have another virtual machine here, but these are across the branches over the WAN. So you use replication feature, vSphere replication, where you have to deploy vSphere replication on this branch, and you have to deploy vSphere replication virtual machine here on this branch. Again, one more thing is, it is for very large environments. Suppose you actually have a vCenter deployed here and a vCenter application deployed here as well. This means it must be pretty large, right? Otherwise, one vCenter is more than enough for a big environment. But if you have 2 vCenters for separation of administration, maybe, then you have to deploy vSphere replication here in each branch, connected to their respective vCenters. What happens is that whatever is going on in one machine gets replicated over the WAN with asynchronous replication, which is not same time replication. It replicates to the other machine. So this machine is kind of a passive or backup machine of this machine, but across the WAN. So it cannot be synchronous replication like in LAN, like in FT, but it will be asynchronous replication, which is that there's a delay between there's a delay there, and whatever's happening, modifications are happening here are sent over the WAN to this. So this could be an exact copy of that machine. So that is then the replica of so that's what replication really do, but it's on what FT does in LAN replication, vSphere replication does across the WAN. Okay, distributed resource scheduler, very, very important feature here. And that is distributed resource, or DRS, distributed resource scheduler. So DRS is that DRS, distributed resources scheduler. So what's a distributed resource scheduler? Distributed resource scheduler is it automatically calculates that how much CPU and RAM is available on this physical machine to be offered to the virtual machines, and how much CPU and RAM is available on this physical server to be offered to the virtual machine. So suppose you put the DRS on fully automated and full aggressive mode. So what happens is it checks that if there is more CPU and RAM available, and if there is, then it automatically vmotions the virtual machine to a better performing physical host. And suppose later, during the day and peak hours, this host has more CPU and RAM now available, and this host has less, and there are 200 hosts. So it keeps on calculating every 5 minutes. So it can move that to that host, which is performing better in terms of CPU and RAM. This means that whichever users are connected to this virtual machine will get always very good performance, right? They will always get very good performance. All right. So that's DRS, pretty cool feature, but it's available with expensive Enterprise Plus license. So big companies will have that. If we talk about distributed switch, so that's the grandpa of switches. So we talked about that virtual switches or get deployed when hypervisor gets deployed. So distributed switch gets deployed in vCenter. So if these are the virtual switches here, right? So distributed switch gets deployed in vCenter, and suppose you have 10,000 virtual machines. 10,000 virtual machines. So you can change their networking features or configurations with the help of a virtual switch that gets deployed on vCenter. So centrally, with the help of distributed switch, you can change the networking of thousands of virtual machines in one go. So we're going to deploy a distributed switch, and then we're going to check its features as well. Then there is update manager. Update manager pretty much just deploys. Now it's actually called lifecycle manager. So also called lifecycle manager. So that also you know, that's also called lifecycle manager to apply patches and perform basic troubleshooting. So this is just like you suppose your Windows 10 at home needs Windows update, so it gets deployed, and then it says that it's going to be restarted at a certain time, and you let it restart, so the updates are installed in your Windows 10 machine or 11. So we deploy updates to Hypervisor, E6i host through lifecycle manager, which used to be called update manager. So we're talking about all these topics and more as well in throughout the course, and so that's going to be a lot of topics that we're going to be talking doing the lab on. Now the details of what software you should have before the next class. So I'm just gonna copy this with much more changes here, and I'll update that in week 2. I'll upload that in week 2. Okay, this is visual. I don't think you need. I'll put it anyway here. Okay, what software do we need? I'll be coming down to that. Okay, so here, so Chinmendo says, are we not doing any lab today? No, Chinmendo, it's going to be a lot of software to be downloaded first, and no one's ready for that. And some of us actually have 8 GB RAM here, so 16 GB has to be there. But anyway, next week we're going to be starting all the labs. But you need, so how to prepare the lab for this? We will be I will tell you that what needs to be installed right away on your machines, so you could be ready for next week when we start, and then it's going to be long labs deployed there. So and now what kind of software we need for our lab? So I'll just we already talked about this, that we need laptop with minimum 24 GB or 32 GB. But 16 GB RAM also. It's gonna be terribly slow, but it's gonna work. I'll put the lab according to 16 GB. My lab as well, so all can follow. And if you have any issues, any questions, then this is the contact number. I've already given that contact number. You already have WhatsApp, then you can contact. Now here I will be putting software software needed before next week. So please visit vmware.com website, create a free user account. It's gonna be useful for you anyway, and download, search and download free 30-day trial version of VMware Workstation 16 Pro. So do not go for VMware Clear. Okay, I'll just please do not install VMware player. Okay, I'll just write that. First question is it really mandatory? Okay, so as ever says in chat, workstation, is it really mandatory? Can't we use VirtualBox or Hyper-V instead? Yes, VirtualBox can be used. Hyper-V for VMware? No. So that would be a bad idea. Like technically, yes, it is possible, but VMware Workstation is the perfect Hypervisor 2 training software for a VMware environment. And using anything else is going to create more issues. And it's because it's the same VMware product, and we're going to be doing lots of labs on VMware. Those going to be very tough labs. So it's best to use VMware Workstation Pro, which is also a VMware product. So all complicated configurations can be implemented there. I never tried VirtualBox for VMware because there was VMware Workstation. And even when I was doing MCSA courses, used to do, so I was always using VMware Workstation. I did use VirtualBox, but it's kind of, I know it's free, but it's gonna give some issues. Now, second thing is, okay, so VMware Workstation is for 30-day trial. What about after 30 days? So the thing is that, let me just put that. Please install it in your laptop before the next class. That's one thing for VMware Workstation. And the second thing is, you will be given access to official VMware student site. Official VMware student site. It's called Brightspace. It's a new partner, and also called D2L, where you can get free 2-year VMware workstation key and also some other VMware software keys as well. So I'll be talking about that, official site. Now that's one thing. You need to install VMware Workstation Pro 16. Second thing is download Windows 2019, 2022, whichever, or 2016 even, whichever is from. And I'll be putting those links here, but let me just grab you the link for so download Windows 2019 Server ISO. Obviously the trial version. We go there. ISO downloads, English, 2019, 64-bit. Yep. Oh, there you go. So this is the link. This you just need to download. We will install it together. Do not install it yourself, because we're going to do customizations. Or if you install it yourself and you see some differences, then you have to uninstall and reinstall again. So that's not good. So download Windows 2019 from this link. And so instruction for this is, do not install it yourself before the next class. Excuse me. We will install it together. right? So you could just start downloading it now. You can create an account on vmware.com and just download the 30-day trial for VMware Workstation. That you need to install. So please install this before the next class. And this one, just download, but do not install it, right? You install it yourself before the next class. Just download it on your laptop, right? Just download it because I'm going to do a lot of customizations on that. So it's good that it would be useful for you to follow me instead of discovering that your Windows 2019 is configured differently and with mine. So the whole rest of the course labs depend totally on how we configure the day one environment, right? So otherwise we won't be able to configure properly that. Okay, so these are the two software that you need right away in before the next class, and then we're going to be installing DHCP, DNS, Active Directory, network adapters, static IP addresses. So that's going to be long lab that we're going to be following, but I'll be giving you some download links in um, next week as well. Those would be the hypervisor, which hypervisor to download. So it would be, so I'll just check this week that if they have released the newer versions of that. Otherwise, we're going to stick to the older versions, which I will give you. So for now, this is it. And we're going to be creating 4 virtual machines inside the VMware Workstation. So just VMware Workstation must be installed fully, right? And do not install the Windows 29, just download the ISO and make sure that all others are also ready. And all others, if you are, just ask on WhatsApp as well that how it needs to be done. I'll just